In November of 2011, over 100 Tompkins County residents from different communities, economic circumstances, racial, ethnic, and age groups met for 2 days to talk about how to achieve a socially just and ecologically sound local economy in the Tompkins County region. We call this movement Building Bridges. Rural and urban leaders, activists and elected officials, investors and entrepreneurs, students and educators, artists, growers, and employers met to gain a shared understanding of our situation and how to transform it, to build stronger relationships across race, class, and place, and a shared vision for our future. It's a vision of people of all ages in the city and rural areas, celebrating life, enjoying good local food, using renewable energy, working in socially responsible local businesses, living in communities that are rich in culture and connecting across all kinds of differences, a community that thinks about our impact on the earth and how our choices affect all living things, and one that is fair, equitable, and values human rights. As investments are made to green our nation and local economies, we believe that if we're strategic in how we invest locally to produce prosperity and well-being for all of our people, including people who've been economically marginalized in the past, we will succeed.
We have got to build and repair the relationships across the barriers of race, class, and place. So you can look around the room and see anybody you got a beef with. Get over it. No, get over it. We cannot afford to be hurting each other. We're allies, right? We just can't afford it. The rest of the things we need to do are actually fairly straightforward. And they will not succeed if we do not fix these relationships. And they include fixing relationships across people who live in rural places and people who live downtown. They include fixing relationships between people who see themselves as working on sustainability and other people who see themselves as working on social justice and have the incredible grammatical problem and verbal problem of defining those things as if they could be different. Right? And we have that problem here. It's not a joke. We have that problem here. So somebody says it's sustainability and a bunch of people say, I ain't going. It's okay. I know who they are, don't want to go there, know how they're going to treat me, and you're not wrong about that. And likewise. So we have to get over that.
When I said move on, actually what I said was get over it. Right? And what I was referring to is the habit of hopelessness that actually paralyzes us and keeps us from taking the steps we could take. That's actually what I meant. Okay. So when I talk about the habits that we have, one of the my framework is that most of us do the things we do without thinking at all, just because we're used to doing it. That's what habits are for. There's way too much stuff going on to think about everything, so we form these habits and then we just do what we do. And when challenged to actually create something really different, then what the challenge becomes is even noticing what we do habitually. And those are habits of behavior, they're habits of mind, they're habits of relationship, they're habits of structure. And a lot of our challenge is, one, even noticing them, and then thinking about it, and then deciding to do something different. So that's the easy part to say. The hard part to say is, okay, if I stop doing something and it isn't working, I have to replace it with a different habit, right? And if I don't know how to do the new thing, if I'm a normal human, I'll try to avoid doing it, right? Some people are really brave and they don't have that problem. I'm not one of those humans, so I know that problem really well from personal experience. And so there's a couple of habits I want to just highlight for, to to describe it, because I've been here a while, I've seen things happen over and over and over again. So one habit that, it's hard to say who, because I'm not going to try to say who, but we referred to it yesterday. There's a group of people that have been working on something for 2 decades. They got a lot of information, they've been studying it, they've got some ideas, they actually figured out where the money's coming from, right, and how to make something happen. And they're not wrong about that. But they figured all that stuff out without the presence of about 2/3 of the representation required to get full community agreement and participation to move forward. So you all know that habit, right? So across the county, we've got that habit. So one way to think about that is, if I'm in one of those groups, one habit is we figured it out, let's just move, because we want to take action, right? Didn't somebody say, let's take action, stop talking? Right? So if one of the problems we're trying to solve is how to get participation from people that have been out, not in this conversation for 20 years, then just deciding to take action actually creates a dilemma. Unless the action we take is how to figure out how to include those people in this conversation. Yeah. Now that's the simple way to say this. The much more difficult way to say this is, I'm one of those people who, generally speaking, I'm kind of open to what other people say, but I know I'm right. So when they show up and have all the stuff that they have to say, I have to break the habit of deciding that my job is to persuade them that, oh, thank you very much for your input, but we really did have this figured out, and we really were right, and we're really glad you're here, and we really hope you'll participate. Now, that is a habit of mine that someone can be in and not even notice it happening, because it's not an intentional anything. But if I'm one of those people that hasn't been in that conversation and I show up and you treat me like that, if I don't hurt you, and I might, there's a lot of ways I can hurt somebody without drawing blood. If I don't hurt you, the chances that I will come back are pretty much reduced, which becomes a problem. The chances that I will tell somebody else that I know that they should go is almost zero, which becomes a problem. Right? You see what I'm talking about around these habits? Now, I've watched, we talked about one kind of group, sustainability and social justice, right? That particular habit I just described, I've been watching that one happen for 20 years. I've been watching people hurt each other, hurt each other's feelings, get mad, say, who's doing it? If that's the person doing it, I ain't going. Right? Period. I don't care how much I need it. I'm not going. So when I was saying get over it, I was talking about that particular problem, because if we keep that one, we can't work together. That one's a showstopper. So how do I get out of the habit of being so mad at you that I decide that my interpersonal interaction with this one person is going to define how I use my power? Now, I get it that that's not a simple habit to break. Right? Almost none of these habits are simple to break. But if we don't break them, if we don't replace them with something else, we can have the best design for how to move the money through this community that the human mind can create. And we won't do it, because we won't have the relationships that make it possible, and we won't have the relationships that make it sustainable.
We also talked at this table about people not voicing their opinion when they see unfairness happening. Like, this is 2012. I see it. Why nobody else? Why not? Because it doesn't really matter to a lot of people. But it matters to me, because I'm a person of color. So I just ask my allies, when they go somewhere and they see that type of stuff, voice it. Say something. Ask Human Services, why you don't have more people of color? That's my last word.
One of the things I think when a lot of people hear green and sustainability, to turn off for them, because it's not a group of people that they associate with them. There's a disconnect there. That's this culture of people, I'm this culture of people. I don't think people necessarily buy into it, and I don't think people behind the movement do a good job understanding what they can do to make other people feel included. So it's an inclusive movement. I think it turns a lot of people off. I know how long it took me to kind of get it and understand it, and still it's somewhat of a turnoff because I don't feel like it's a movement for me in particular. There's benefits of it, but I don't feel like it has Travis Brooks, a black guy, involved in that movement. And so I think that educating people, being educated about the consumer, how to relate to the consumer, how to open up those doors so their consumers feel like this is a movement that they want to be part of, I think is important.
What about the "it's not my problem" habit? The environment isn't my problem. You know, it's nothing I can do is going to make this challenge a global climate. Those who have and have not, it's not my problem. And you know, we sort of all get stuck in that. I think we're all sensitive and we want to make the world a better place, but it's really easy to walk away from this table saying, it's not my problem. And how do we get people engaged to understand that it is all of our problem? On one side of the equation, that the environment is all of our problem, and on the other side of the equation, that economic justice is all of our problem. And that is difficult, and I'm struggling with that personally, so I gotta imagine others like me are as well.
So I think there's two things that's kind of hasn't been talked about. One is the reality. And the reality is people are working a lot more. People are working longer hours. Technology is what it is. It's here, and it's only going to get more advanced. People just have to kind of get used to that. But the big thing is collaboration. So that's where a lot of relationships are built, is around collaborating on projects. So I might see George, I don't know, we've met in the last week, we've seen each other.
More than we have in a very long time, yeah.
By the end of today, there might be something George is working on that might have an interest to some of the kids I serve or the families, and we might decide to, like I said, take some steps forward and do something together that is a collaboration of both of our interests. I'm not giving up my time. George isn't giving up his time to each other. We are working with each other to advance our common cause. And I think that's important for people to figure out where they can collaborate at. Because Katie might not have 10 hours to give to me next month. But she may have 10 hours to work with me on a project that advances something she's working on and advances something that I'm working on. So I think collaborating and just being realistic with what people are dealing with, I think, are two important things.
So I just want to be really clear. This is not another project, right? This is an initiative to try to connect the existing projects and simultaneously figure out how, in creative ways, to get the word out to a lot more people of a bunch of good stuff that's already happening that share a common core with an interest and emphasis on social equity, on job creation, on keeping money here, on saving energy through food, waste, transportation, and buildings.
Cool. So Jeff, if somebody has some ideas for some businesses that would create jobs,
Yes.
that would fit sustainability in the green movement and get your green back, what is the first? Who should they talk to? What is the
Sarah
first?
Reistetter or Mike.
Okay, cool.
And one of the steps that we're talking about is connecting people throughout the county with an effort that the Tompkins County Solid Waste is working on, called the Simple Six, which is to reach everyone in the county to help them see what they need to recycle and can recycle, and make that easier for people. Mm-hmm. So they've been centrally involved in trying to come up with creative ways that different materials can be recycled. There's a lot of scrap metal that's not being recycled, let alone for constructive purpose. Mm-hmm.